I heard several theories on real estate. The 18.6-year cycle, the 2.9-ish year cycles. I talk about that a lot. The 10-year oscillating cycle, the oscillating model seems to have predicted the 2010, 2011 bottom and the 2021 top, the oscillating being the 10-year. This indicator is calling for another bottom around 2029 and the next top around 2038 to 2040. Are they all correct or all wrong? So it's funny, I never really believed in cycles till I started seeing patterns. And one of the patterns I did see was, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but let's go back in time. Let's go back to the 1800s. And big thank you to Nick for sharing this with me. And this is one I've seen before, but never gave much credence to it. But let's go back in history. This is what they call the Benner cycle. And he goes all the way back. It was put together, I think, in 1875. And the idea is this zones A, B, and C. And you can see the cyclical pattern that happens with a lot of regularity, typically in 9 to 11 years between cycles as we go forward. And at the top, you have a greater expanse, which is nearly the 18, 20, 21 years, depending on the year you were in. Now, according to this, if these patterns work, you could say that 2023 is a year of hard times, low prices, and a good time to buy stocks. Corner lots being one of my preferred pieces of real estate. I like to buy buildings on corners, goods, etc., and hold till the boom reaches the years of good times, then unload. So if this is correct, 2023 is the time to load up. The time to offload would be either 2026 or the greater cycle, maybe all the way out to 2035 or back to 2032. It's hard to say, but I do believe you can find ways of making a narrative fit many of these charts. Let's look at another one. Let's look at the 18-year real estate cycle. And this is the one you referred to, and it's a chart I pulled up. Now, if you did rely on this 18-year real estate cycle, which held pretty tight in the past, up until about, let me see, the low missed by about a year or so in, what was that, 1998? 2007 was pretty tight. It was actually, the bottom didn't fall out of the market until about 2009. And then for the rally we had recently, driven by pandemic changes and cycles and buying behavior, and people want to live more in their homes and not go to offices, you would have missed out on a lot of opportunity. So from that perspective, be careful. If you do believe too much in these cycles, they can lead you astray. And of course, there's cycles that have been around for a long time. They're not going to work. Another way of looking at it as well is, since we're on the topic of real estate, the Case-Shiller, which is my preferred indicator, and I've been looking at this a lot, and you can pull this up in your TradingView, etc. But here you have the top to bottom, or bottom to top of a cycle back between 1991 and about 2005, 2006. So it's 15 years. Then the global financial crisis, 2009, to the top, about 13 years. So there's no real pattern, but depending on where you measure from, there's also a ton of mini cycles in there. So there was a great set of gains between 2002 and 2006, for example, and many others. And you don't have to be on the train all the time, but it is also very easy to see when real estate is very oversold versus overbought. And also when you tie it back to things like money supply and interest rates and other macro factors, I think they all have a huge part in what's happening right now. And you've seen the real estate market being destroyed all over the world. Australia, Germany, United Kingdom, United States, smashed because of increasing interest rates. And it's a double whammy, especially for people who are not all cash buyers. Now, there is one other cycle I want to insert here, Anderson W., and this is what I call the 62-month cycle. And here, again, as I mentioned, you can find a way of fitting most data to any cycle. But with this, is kind of interesting. This blue line here shows you the actual return of the S&P 500. We're no longer talking about real estate right now. After inflation and when dividends are reinvested. And you can see here each monthly data point, and this is adjusted for inflation. This nails bottoms, for example, June 2022, and it is monthly data. Now, and just playing with these things, there's a whole bunch of charts that I look at, but this one was kind of interesting, and that's 62 months is 5.2 years, 5-year cycle. So again, but this one has been uncanny. And also remember, there can be mini cycles within bigger cycles, but this is much nicer. But if you talk about, say, a 5-year cycle and a 10-year cycle and an 18-year cycle, which is nearly like 4 or 5-year cycles, it all ties together. And there's always that lag between the stock market and real estate too. Stock market falls first, real estate falls after. So you just need to shove your chart over a little bit. So that is my set of thoughts and cycles. I love the questions, and you'll always find one that fits. But be careful of the whole cognitive bias as we go forward. Again, you got to look at a lot of external factors to determine exactly what brings these things down. So, for example, this may predict the future, but if something were to happen, like a nuclear warhead going off, all bets are out the window.